I'm Technovoid, and today we're talking about Pokemon Unite, the new free Pokemon MOBA coming to Switch in July and mobile devices in September. Here's the thing though, I'm not good at MOBAs, so I've brought in our resident MOBA expert Lazadin to help me explain the basics of Unite. So, Lazadin, what kind of experience do you have with this genre?
Thanks, Techno. I've been playing League since Season 3. I've been playing Dota on and off for about 6 years, and I've been playing Heroes of the Storm since Technical Alpha.
Nice.
Well, I wouldn't call myself an expert by any means. I would definitely say that I'm pretty proficient in all 3 games.
What sort of ranked experience do you have?
I did not play a whole lot of ranked in both League or Dota. I capped at Diamond in Heroes of the Storm.
Oh, okay, alright, very cool. So it sounds like we are in good hands. So Lazadin and I have spent the past 2 or 3 days playing through the Japanese beta, which we cannot read, but we have gotten a decently good feel for what is currently in the game. As such, some of the information we talk about today might be slightly different from what you see on the full release, but it's a pretty good starting point. To make this guide more digestible, we have split it up into various sections, including the gameplay loop, the map, the classes, specifics on each of the characters, and the item system. And with that, let's get into it and show you a little something about this super fun game. So to start things off with the gameplay loop, the way that Pokemon Unite works is that the match is on a rigid 10-minute timer, and the goal is to score points in the enemy goals. Pokemon start in their base form at level 1 and level up. As they do so, they learn moves and evolve by KOing wild Pokemon and opponents. You start the game with one of 2 moves and obtain the second one at level 3. As you level up further, each of your 2 basic moves upgrades into one of 2 options, for a total of 4 different builds. As you level up more, these moves will get additional effects. At a high level, usually between 8 and 10, you will learn your Unite move, which is a powerful attack or effect that can change the flow of battle. Unlike other moves, which are on a regular cooldown, Unite moves recharge based on your actions in-game. You can sort of think of them like an ultimate in Overwatch. You get points and EXP by defeating wild Pokemon. However, the player to last hit the Pokemon gets the points. And KOing players will make them drop some of the points they are holding, which can be picked up. You deposit your points into the enemy goal, but taking damage actually cancels your deposit.
Yep. And depending on how many points you have to channel for a longer amount of time. So you can either do small goals throughout the course of the game, or you can try to hit big ones all at once.
Yeah, and then at the end of the 10-minute mark, the most points wins. Interestingly enough, Pokemon Unite doesn't show you how many points you have throughout the game, which helps you stay focused and really keeps things tense until the late game.
So Pokemon Unite's main competitive game mode is played on a 5v5 map, which has 2 lanes, the top lane and the bottom lane, separated by a jungle. You usually want to have 2 people per lane, and then 1 jungler who kills the neutral camps and, helps the other lanes. Each team has 2 goals per lane, 1 outer and 1 inner, that will break after a certain amount of points are scored in them, and an infinite goal at the spawn. If you go behind an enemy goal while it's active, you get a debuff that decreases your movement speed and potentially does other things. It's hard to tell. And if you stay in your own goal, you get a small heal and a shield. In the jungle, you have a Lillipup that spawns at the start of the game, who will aggressively run away from you as you try to explode the dog, but won't attack you. And then you'll have a Ludicolo, which gives you the violet buff, or blue buff, which makes you do more damage to lower health Pokemon, and a Bouffalant, which gives you the orange or red buff that makes you reduce enemy move speed on hit. Starting at around 3 minutes, 2 large neutral objectives will spawn. You'll have your Rotom in the top lane, which will, when you defeat it, it will start moving down the lane towards your enemy's goal. If it manages to get to the enemy goal, it will cause you to be able to instantly score on that goal for about 15 seconds. However, it will stop if it runs into an enemy Pokemon.
One thing that I think actually about Rotom that's really interesting is that it does give you 20 points, and since you have an instant scoring system at that point, it doesn't, even though you have a lot of points, it's completely free to donate all of them at once. You don't need to wait the huge channel for the 20 points that you normally would.
Mm-hmm. But on the other hand, if you kill it a second time, as in because it switches to your team when you kill it, if the enemy team kills it, they get 20 points too. So you have to be careful about when you do it. Down in the bottom lane, you have the Dreadnought, another one worth 20 points. But if it's defeated, it gives a large shield and a big EXP boost to everybody on your team. However, it is tankier than Rotom, does not help you score points, and has a lot of obnoxious CC while you're fighting it.
And so as we mentioned, the match actually goes for 10 minutes. However, if you die within the first 5 minutes of the match, after waiting out your death timer, you basically just have to run back to your lane. However, at the 5-minute mark, a Dugtrio will spawn right next to your base, which you can use to launch yourself deeper into the map, which can be really useful for getting around quicker in the second half of the match. Once the match gets down to 2 minutes, all scoring is doubled, so anytime you do a dunk, however many points you had, you'll double that score, making the last 2 minutes of the match really impactful for any final rushes.
But in the last 2 minutes of the match, our friends Rotom and Dreadnought entirely disappear, instead being replaced with a big old Zapdos in the middle of the arena. Zapdos is very strong, but if you kill him, the person who killed him gets 30 points, and all enemy goals are temporarily disabled, and everybody on the enemy team takes a large amount of damage. Zapdos is an incredibly powerful force for swinging matches. I think we've had games during the beta where we've come back from 300-point deficits off of a really good Zapdos play.
Yeah, Zapdos can be really powerful because the last hitter gets 30 points for it, and everybody else on the team gets 20 points for it, which, essentially comes out to 50 points. And since points are doubled in the last 2 minutes, which is when Zapdos spawns, that essentially doubles to like 60 points and 40 points with instant scoring, so there's absolutely no channeling time for that, so Zapdos is incredibly powerful. Will it get nerfed in the full release? Unclear. Alright, so moving on to classes, the game has 5 classes that are based on common MOBA archetypes. A balanced team is usually going to have a good combination of various classes, but in general in Pokemon Unite, especially when starting out, it's more than fine to have a skewed team as long as you're playing something you enjoy, because it's not as important as like League of Legends or Dota that you have a very well-rounded team. So the 5 classes, to start with, we have the Attacker, which is going to be the main DPS in the game. They're squishy characters with large ranges and big damage values. You can think of them like your AD carries or your control mages from other MOBAs.
Characters like Vayne or like Swain from LoL, Sniper or OD from Dota, and then like Vala or KT, your pick, from Heroes of the Storm.
Moving into all-rounders, they're sort of a more balanced damage dealer that have some tankiness to them, and usually a form of engage as well. You can think of them like your bruisers or fighters from other MOBAs.
If you're a Jax player from League of Legends, all-rounders are usually where you want to go. Tiny players from Dota, although I'm afraid you won't be able to one-shot people randomly. And then Sonya from Heroes of the Storm.
Moving into defenders, they are going to be the dedicated tanks of the game, with high bulk and great crowd control for their allies.
You're looking at, if you're a tank player from other games, obviously, you're talking like Maokai's from LoL, you got Centaur from Dota, or like Myrmidon from Heroes of the Storm. You'll enjoy defenders.
Support, though, is a role that is more focused on providing beneficial effects to allies. Unlike some MOBAs, supports in Unite actually have a lot of damage potential as well, although much less than the other classes, and usually their focus lies more in the heals, shields, buffs, and debuffs.
Yeah, the support roster in the beta at least was a bit weird, and it does make it hard to pinpoint exactly what works well, but like Karma from LoL, Dazzle from Dota, and Stukov from HOTS are the closest things I can get.
And finally, we have the Speedsters, which are quick characters that can roam very easily and have a much easier time scoring points. This makes Speedsters often the best choice for a player in the jungle. Speedsters act similarly to Assassins in combat as squishy melee characters with high burst damage and mobility.
You're thinking about your Talons, your PAs, or your Valeras usually.
So now that we've talked about the classes in general, let's get a little bit more into the nitty-gritty of each specific Pokemon. Starting out with attackers, we have Pikachu.
Pikachu is a Pokemon that I think perfectly exemplifies the idea of monkey mode. He has very nice self-peel, very high burst, very easy to play overall, and provides a lot of value for the team.
Yeah, I definitely think if you are starting out, Pikachu could be a really good pick for you if you like that sort of high damage class, because Pikachu has one of the best ranges in the game, and his move pool is frankly just quite good.
Mm-hmm. Light Ball is really, really silly for the amount of damage it does compared to the fact that it's point and click.
Yeah. So next up we have Greninja.
Greninja is a really cool one. I definitely wouldn't recommend him to a newer player, as he does seem a bit on the tricky side. He's got lots of mobility, lots of sneaky tricks, does a decent amount of damage, and scales pretty nicely into the mid game.
Okay, how about Venusaur?
Venusaur is one I'm less confident speaking on because, frankly, I didn't see that many of them. And I only got to play one game myself, but he seems like he has a lot of very powerful ranged nukes, as well as being able to build into almost a bruiser with his short-ranged skills with lifesteal.
I wouldn't know if his long-range nukes are any good, because anytime I tried to use one of them, I would shoot it in the wrong direction.
That's a mood.
So next on the attackers list, we have Alolan Ninetales. What are your thoughts on her?
Alolan Ninetales is probably one of the better attackers, I would say, with a lot of slows, powerful crowd control, good team utility, as well as having it being the only Pokemon with any form of like vision control per se. There are no wards in this game for anybody who's coming from other MOBAs, but Alolan Ninetales' passive will occasionally drop a little puddle on top of another Pokemon, so you can potentially scout out ganks from bushes.
Very cool. Moving into potentially one of my favorite attackers, we have Cramorant. Tell me a little bit about him.
Cramorant is Yasuo. Cramorant is an insanely powerful burst mage, or if he wants to, he can be a very sticky, sort of hard to kill, almost bruiser, but he's still pretty squishy. He's often underrated, but very, very strong.
Yeah, I think the thing about Cramorant is a lot of people are underestimating Cramorant's power right now in the beta because people haven't really had too much time to play with him, but I think he's going to be really high skill ceiling and is going to be seeing a lot of play in more coordinated games.
Mm-hmm.
And then finally, for the attackers, we have Cinderace.
Cinderace, or Cinderace if you're a degenerate, has some of the best mobility of the auto attackers, as well as, I would say, a pretty high skill ceiling. Its skill floor isn't too bad, though, so if you're someone who likes the sort of easy to pick up, hard to master, Cinderace is where I would look.
Alright, that is going to cover all the attackers. Moving into the all-rounders, let's start out with Charizard.
Charizard he has two very distinct builds that change the way he plays fundamentally. Either you can be like a sort of area denial special attacker, or you could be a good old diver. He doesn't. It's hard. It was hard to get a feel for how good he was, though.
Mm-hmm. That being said, though, I still think overall his kit is pretty simplistic, so if you are new to this and you are sort of looking for a sort of bulky, stay in the fight, do a decent amount of damage, Charizard could be a good place for you to start. So next up we have Lucario.
Yeah, Lucario is a really, really cool Pokemon. He has either really insane stickiness with extreme speed or really nice burst. He's a very, very good early game, lots of survivability, overall very strong Pokemon. Definitely hard to master, though.
Alright, and our third all-rounder is Machamp. What are your thoughts on them?
Machamp is a bit weird to talk about, because he sort of doesn't seem to do anything until he becomes Machamp, but then when he is Machamp, he feels unstoppable. Very high damage bruiser, amazing chase, CC immunity. He does more damage if you try to CC him. Like, it's insane.
Yeah, Machamp is one that I sort of had some trouble getting a feel for, but I definitely, when I was playing against him, I felt that he was powerful. And then finally, one of, I think, the most fun characters in the game potentially is Garchomp.
Love Garchomp. Shout out to JJ Kuhn, by the way. Great Garchomp player. But yes, Garchomp is an extremely good skirmishing, auto-attacking like bruiser. He very, very good at taking bosses by himself. He wins almost every single duel. He's very sticky. All around, just a great Pokemon.
Yeah, Garchomp's sort of like skirmishing power plus his gap closers is kind of ridiculous. Okay, so moving into the defenders, let's start out with Snorlax.
Snorlax is probably like the prototypical like engaged tank. He has a lot of CC with his Yawn and Heavy Slam, also doing a pretty good amount of damage, though he doesn't do much in the early game.
Yes, Snorlax sort of picks up at level 6 when he gets that Heavy Slam, but before that he can be sorta tough. But after that, I think he is a force to be reckoned with.
Mm-hmm. If you're new to the game, you're looking to play a tank, I would definitely look to Snorlax, especially because he's one of the free picks.
So next up on the defenders list, we have Crustle, who is very interesting. Can you tell me a little bit about him?
Crustle is a very unique tank. He can either be a pretty high damage dealing bruiser or an excellent area denial tool. You can either choose between the Shell Smash X Scissor build, which allows you to win fights with most Pokemon in the game, or you can get the powerful Wall of Rock Tomb and the nice AoE damage of Stealth Rock.
And finally for the defenders, we have Slowbro, which I think is a favorite of yours.
Yes, it is. My current name of the Discord is Slowbro Enjoyer. Slowbro is probably the best CC of all three of the tanks. Absolutely insane peel. Hits his power spike nice and early at level 4, and once you hit level 4, you are an unstoppable beast. He has inbuilt sustain. He can choose to either have great dueling potential with amnesia or even more CC with telekinesis, and one of the most frustrating ultimates in the game to get hit by.
Yep. Yes, Slow Beam is very much a you are not playing the game for the next 10 seconds, enjoy. So moving on into the supports, this is potentially my favorite class, and it generally is in MOBAs, so let's start out with Eldegoss.
Yeah, Eldegoss is probably the most supporty of the supports. Very straightforward. Lots of healing, utility with shields, slows, damage increases, all the good stuff. If you're a support player in other MOBAs and you're looking, just to test the waters a little bit, Eldegoss is the place to go.
Yeah, as you mentioned with Snorlax, Eldegoss is another one of those characters that you can pick at level 2, so it's really good for that. Eldegoss also, don't take the word support to mean they don't do damage. Eldegoss has some pretty good damage as well. Moving into probably what is one of the weirder characters both as a Pokemon and in this game, we have Mr. Mime.
Delete this. That's all I have to say about Mr. Mime. But in all seriousness, Mr. Mime is one of those Pokemon that's very hard to get a read on because his kit is so unique. He either is like a CC-oriented support, or he can pull off some weird shenanigans with Guard Swap, which functions similar to how it is in the game, where in like the base games where you swap defensive stats with your opponent. So it's a very weird support, and it's hard to exactly pinpoint how good he is.
Yeah, Mr. Mime definitely seems like he's going to be a much higher skill floor champion than a lot of these, so it was sort of difficult to get a read on him in the beta, especially since all the tooltips were in Japanese, which made it very difficult to figure out exactly what he did. And finally, we've got Wigglytuff, a personal favorite of mine.
Wigglytuff is
stupid.
All you Wii players out there, you've ever had a brand support? That's what playing with a Wigglytuff feels like. Very, very high damage. Sing is an extremely powerful move. Decent Unite move. Peaks very early in the game. All in all, very, very fun character. But I do feel like it's the least supporty of the supports.
Oh, for sure, but it is certainly also the biggest dumbass energy of all the supports, and I very much enjoy that.
If only you'd stop taking my last hits.
Alright, and finally we have the Speedsters. Let's start off with Talonflame.
Yeah, so Talonflame is probably the highest mobility character in the game, it's fair to say, with the Scale Link's passive and his insane ability with Fly, and like basically all of his moves make him move. Like, it's pretty insane. Decent burst as well, though he will struggle in duels versus some of the better duelists.
And secondly, we have Absol. What do you have to say on them?
Yeah, Absol is probably the most straightforward of the speedsters. He will teleport on top of you. He will try to kill you. He does more damage to isolated targets. All in all, excellent duelist, high mobility, really good clear speed in the jungle especially.
So, would you say they are nothing personnel, kid?
Yes, absolutely.
Right, great. And absolutely, probably of the speedsters, Absol would probably be the easiest to pick up if that's the sort of playstyle you're interested in. Would you agree with that?
I'd say so.
Okay, and then finally for the speedsters, we have Gengar.
My personal favorite speedster. He is extremely flexible. He can either be played in lane or jungle. Talonflame also, I would say, can. Absol, I'm not too sure about lane Absol. But yeah, Gengar can either be played in lane or jungle. He can either be a nice team fighting mage, or he can be an extremely sticky assassin, which is with his Sludge Bomb Hex combo. Super fun. Can't recommend him enough.
And that is all the characters in the game, so there is one more thing we'd like to talk about, and that is the items. There are two types of items. There are active items and passive items. So let's start out with the active items, which sort of act like summoner spells.
Yeah. So when you start the game, the first battle item you unlock is a potion, which functions similar to like a heal. It's definitely one of the weaker actives, and I would ditch it as soon as possible. Then you have your X attack, which temporarily gives you a buff to your attack and special attack. X speed is a large speed buff. Cat's tail, which is a absolutely useless item unless you are playing jungle, because it only increases your damage to jungle monsters. Eject button, which is a nice short range dash, so think about like Flash or Blink Dagger.
Yeah, there's some other ones too, but you unlock those at higher levels, and we're not entirely sure what all of them do.
Yeah. Full heal is a cleanse, though. I know that much. Not sure what Smokescreen does, and I've heard Goal Boost is trash, but that's about all I know about it.
Alright, so that's going to cover the active items, so you're going to be taking one of those into your matches with you. As for the other type of item, there are passive items, which you can sort of level up between games, and put up to 3 of them on any one specific Pokemon, which sort of act like items in a different game, but rather than doing a build path within the game, you're doing it sort of beforehand.
For all you older League players out there, the original rune system is what I would liken items to. While we're not going to go over all the items in this video, I will cover a couple of them. Leftovers is the first item you start with, and is probably the item that you're like, you can never go wrong with Leftovers. Gives you a nice chunk of HP, out of combat healing. I would definitely recommend an early level up on Leftovers. Floatstone is another one of the big ones. It gives you a nice little bit of attack damage, as well as movement speed. EXP Share is a very unique item. It's exactly hard to pinpoint how strong it is, because it's an item that only functions if you're the lowest XP on the team, but if you want to play support, it's a decent place to look.
So yeah, there are a lot of different items, but for the most part, these are the ones that you're going to want to look into leveling up first. All of the items sort of increase the stats they give you as you level them up. So starting off with Leftovers, Floatstone, or if you have a specific main that benefits from a specific item, that could also be something good to level up. But at the end of the day, if you're playing enough, you are going to get most of these to the max level.
Mm-hmm. And if you, there is actually a way within the game to check what high-level players of that Pokemon do you use. So if you're like, you know what, I am going to one-trick Talonflame, then you can see what the number 1 Talonflame in the world builds. Very
cool. Anything else?
Yeah, just a few final thoughts here at the end. One big thing is know your laner. Whoever gets the last hit on the Pokemon does get not only the points, but also more XP. So you want to make sure that you are giving the person who needs the XP more the XP. Could be really, really impactful. As well as the other big thing is make sure at the beginning of a game, always make sure you declare your lane. That way everybody knows what to do. You know, want to make sure you're communicating with your team clearly. While it is impossible to tell how strong Pokemon are from the beta, there is one thing that is undisputably S tier: the power of friendship.
That's
you
true.
Make sure you use that to your advantage.
Yeah, as long as you have a good team with communication and you're not being toxic, you will do well and you will have fun. So anyways, that is going to be the basics of Pokemon Unite. Lazan and I hope to see you out on Remote Stadium, because dang, I cannot read Japanese, but this game has been so much fun over the past 3 days, and I cannot wait for the full release.
Be sure you join the Discord so you can play with us.
Yes, indeed. And with that, we will say goodbye and adios. Click here in the middle to subscribe, and over on the left and right for different videos. Maybe, if Unite is out, they will be Unite related. I've been Technovoid.
I've been Lazadin.
And we will catch you guys later. Bye-bye.
If you watched all the way to the end, comment potato.